A warm greetings to everyone. Myself Subhashri and I'm doing my BA in VOC College of Education. In this video, we are going to discuss about problem-based learning. It is one of the topic in pedagogy of physical science subject. So from the name itself, you can able to get some ideas. Here, the learning is related with problems. So these are the contents we are going to discuss in this video. So what is meant by problem-based learning? Its origin, objectives, principles, characteristics, process, teachers and students' role in problem-based learning, skills developed by PBL technique, advantages and effectiveness of problem-based learning, demands of implementing PBL, and conclusion. Okay. So what is meant by problem-based learning? Actually, this PBL method is an instructional as well as self-directed learning method. Here, the teacher instructs the students and students through self-learning process solve the problem. So this is what meant by problem-based learning. Then the students here are stimulated to learn through their reflection, reasoning, problem-solving techniques, self-directed learning strategies, critical thinking skills, and through team participation skills. Moreover, the problems are always related with the real world and open-ended problems. Here, open-ended problems means it has number of solutions for a single problem. For example, if a teacher asks that how sound is produced means there will be a number of solutions for this particular question. So these kind of questions are called as open-ended questions. So the problem-based learning is always related with real world and open-ended problems. Next, this technique is always implemented in higher education system. So problem-based learning is an instructional as well as self-directed learning method. It stimulates students to learn through their reflection, problem-solving technique skills, team participation skills and all. And this is related with real world and open-ended problems. Then this process takes place in higher education system and all. Next, the origin of problem-based learning. This technique was first introduced by Barrows and Tamlin at medical school at McMaster University in Hamilton, Canada in 1969 itself. Actually, they implemented this process in order to find out the medical students' approach towards the patients. So later, 1974, Maastricht University, Netherlands, they implemented this method to their high school students. Then Smith in 1976, he devised a 7-step method for the systematic process of PBL technique. These are the 7 steps. If the problem is given by a teacher, then the student have to clarify the terms and concepts. If there occurs any doubt, then the student have to clarify it with the teacher. After that, they have to define the problem and analyze the problem. After analyzing the problem, they have to explain their steps systematically, and then they have to formulate their learning objectives. Mostly this problem-based learning method takes place within a group. So they have to collect information outside the group also. After collecting all the information, they have to synthesize it and check the newly acquired information in order to acquire the solution of the problem. So these are the 7 steps. First, they have to clarify if they have any doubts. Then they have to define the problem and analyze it. Then they have to explain the steps and then formulate the objectives and collect information outside the group. Then by checking all the information, they have to finalize the solution. And then development of PBL. Later in the 19th and 20th century, this PBL technique was inspired by many educational institutions, and it has spread all over the universities and colleges. And now most of the universities are using this as their main educational method. So this is the development of problem-based learning method. These are the objectives of problem-based learning. The first and foremost objective is it develops the self-directed learning method. And moreover, learning takes place in small groups and it develops critical thinking. It promotes lifelong learning process Self and peer assessment takes place within the group, and it develops the inquiry-based learning techniques. So these are the objectives. It develops self-directed learning. Learning takes place in small groups. It develops critical thinking. It promotes lifelong learning process. And self and peer assessment takes place within the group. And then it develops the inquiry-based learning process. Now we are going to discuss about the principles of problem-based learning. The first one is contextual. The problem given by a teacher should relate with the real world problems. And at the same time, the learning material is also more relevant to the problem, so that the students can able to apply it on the real life situations. So the first principle is contextual. The problem should be related with the real world, and the learning material should also be more relevant, so that the student can able to apply it in a real world situation. Then constructive. Since this method is a student-centered approach, the learners can able to construct their own knowledge. Here, the teacher should serve as a guide on the side. So the second one is constructive. Here, the learners can able to construct their knowledge. The third one is collaborative. As I already said, the problem-based learning takes place in a group. They can able to share their ideas and knowledge related with the problem, and they can maintain a good relationship with their peer group. So this is the third principle, collaborative. And the fourth one is self-directed. Since the students solve their problems by themselves, it promotes a self-directed learning skills in students. So this is the fourth principle, self-directed. And by following all the principles, the student can able to plan, reflect, and evaluate the understanding of the subject matter. And moreover, they can able to collect some new information according to the subject. So the first principle is contextual, second one is constructive, third is collaborative, and the fourth one is self-directed. Next, characteristics of problem-based learning. The first important characteristic is, here the learning is mainly dependent on the student. So the student is responsible for their own learning. And the problem given by the teacher must be ill-structured and connected to the real world problem. The teacher should act as a facilitator or a guide, and they should promote the inquiry-based environment. Moreover, the problems should incorporate the contents which is connected to the previous knowledge of the student. The first characteristic is learning process is a student-centered approach. So the students are responsible for their own learning. The problems should be related to the real world, and it should be ill-structured. And the teacher should act as a facilitator or guide and promote an inquiry-based environment. The problem should incorporate the content which is connected to the previous knowledge. As I already said, since the problem-based learning is always connected within a peer group, the collaboration is essential. It is one of the characteristics. And moreover, the learning should integrate a wide range of disciplines or subjects, and the problems should not test the skill of a student. It should develop the skills. As it is related with the open-ended problems, there will be multiple pathways in solving the problem. And through this problem-based learning, students can able to gain new information since they are undergoing a self-directed learning process. So these are the characteristics. The collaboration is essential. Learning should be integrated from a wide range of disciplines or subjects. It should not test the skills, it should develop the student skill. It has multiple pathways in solving, and the students can gain new informations. Process of problem-based learning. If the teacher gives a problem, then the first step of the student is to brainstorm it and analyze it. Then they have to list out what they know. After that, they have to collect the information, what is needed. Then they have to list out the possible solutions and choose the best option which is related to the problem. If there occurs any issues, then they have to develop an action plan in order to solve the problem and attain the solution. So these are the steps or process in problem-based learning technique. First, the student have to analyze it, then list out what they already know. and then they have to gather the information if any needed. Then they have to list out the possible solutions and choose the best option from that. If any problem occurs, then they have to develop an action plan in order to attain the solution of the problem. Then teacher's role. The most important role of a teacher is to present the subject matter with examples. After that only they have to give the problems to the students. So they should present the subject matter with examples. And then they have to design the problem that should not be that much easy, but it should teach some new skills to the students. They allow the students to collect more details on their own. If the student has any issue, then they have to guide the student. After finalizing the solutions, the teacher has to evaluate the performance of the team. Then they should make the students to work collaboratively. So here the teacher's role is to present the subject matter with examples. Then they have to design the problem that should teach them new skills. And if any issues occurs, then they have to guide the learner. After that, they have to evaluate their performance and they make the students to work collaboratively. These are the students' role in problem-based learning process. The students should be an active learners because it is purely dependent on students. They should maintain a good relationship with their peer group. And if any problem occurs, they should face it and clear their doubts with the teachers. They should design a plan to solve the problem, and they have to collect information outside the group. And by gathering all the informations, they should work on the problem and list out all the possible solutions to finalize the best option. So these are the students' role. So students should be an active learners. They should maintain a good relationship. They have to confront the problem, design the plan to solve the problem. They should gather information and work on the problem. Then by listing out all the possible solutions, they can attain the best solution for the problem. Next, skills developed by problem-based learning. It promotes self-directed learning, stimulates critical reasoning, develops creative thinking, made the students to work collaboratively, develops their communication skill, questioning skill, and leadership skill. Apart from these, there are lots of skills which can be developed by the problem-based learning, and some of them are self-directed, critical reasoning, creative thinking, collaboration, communication, questioning, and leadership skills. Next, advantages of problem-based learning. Here, the students become an active learners because they are in the position to solve the problem by their own. And it enhances the student-centered learning. The students can learn to analyze and solve the relevant problems which is related to the lifelong process. This PBL technique makes the student to study independently without being constantly spoon-fed by a teacher. It enriches the teacher-student relationship. So some of the advantages are students become active learners, enhance student-centered learning. The students learn to analyze and solve the relevant problems. Students become independent and it enriches the teacher-student relationship. Next, effectiveness of problem-based learning. In this problem-based learning setup, the students enjoy their education system when compared with the students who are studying in other curriculum. And moreover, the training is more relevant to the future professional life since they are learning by themselves. And in workplace, they prefer working in small groups more than attending lectures, and also they report some less stress and fear being powerless and less fatalism. They feel more supported by their learning environment. And then graduates from the problem-based school reports that they consider themselves to be better equipped in their interpersonal competencies, teamwork, consulting with clients, and leadership. They consider themselves more independent, more creative, and more efficient in their work. And moreover, they display a better solving skills. These are the effectiveness of problem-based learning method. Next, In our education system, we are not implementing this problem-based learning effectively. In order to implement it, we have to face all these demands. The first one is we have to prepare the faculty in order to accept and promote this problem-based learning method. Then we should establish a committee and a working group to implement this process. After that, they have to design a new problem-based learning curriculum and they have to define the educational outcomes. This is the work of that committee. Then they have to seek advice from the experts in problem-based learning method. Then they have to plan, organize, and manage according to this method. They have to train the facilitators and define the objectives of problem-based learning to the facilitators. Then they have to introduce the problem-based learning to the students. And in this normal education system, we are following a particular type of assessment. But if we implement problem-based learning curriculum, then we have to change the assessment process too. Then by encouraging feedbacks from students and teaching staff, we can improve this problem-based learning method. The students need a perfect resource material for their problem solving technique. So it is important to manage the learning resources in order to support the self-directed learning process. And by continuing evaluation and making changes, we can give a better problem-based learning techniques. These are the demands of implementing problem-based learning method. In conclusion, so this PBL technique is not just about employability or implementing new genre in higher education learning. It is an approach to the learning process which helps the learners to engage with and live in a complex world. And it makes learning as a lifelong process. So these are the references. I refer to books, Introduction to the Problem-Based Learning and the Early Handbook of Problem-Based Learning. These two books are available in Google Books. So if you need any further reference, you please refer those books. And I also referred university notes. And these are the other references. Yes. So in this video, we just discussed about what is meant by problem-based learning, its origin, objectives, principles, characteristics, and process, teachers and students' role in problem-based learning method, skills developed by PBL techniques, advantages and effectiveness of problem-based learning, demands of implementing problem-based learning, and then conclusion. And I hope that you all gain some new information related to problem-based learning method. Thank you for watching this video.